Good morning, everyone. Sorry I'm a minute late. Just give me a second here. Gonna log on and try to find the comments. We'll give people a few minutes to find us. Say hi if you're there so I can see, make sure everything's good. Sorry, what am I doing here? Finding the comments. There we go. Hi, Sharon. Okay. We will just give everyone a few minutes to hop on while I get myself organized. Ooh. Good morning, Mary Ellen. Hi, Kathy. Oh, thank you. So these are the two cards we're going to be making today. Did something a little different today. I felt like I needed more space, so I did two 5x7 cards. Thank you, Debbie. Hi, Tracy. Good morning, everyone. So we'll just wait one more minute and we will get started. We're gonna start off with this one because it's a little bit more involved. So those of you who know me know I can't resist my shakers and my sparkles. I felt like this was a perfect opportunity to use all my glittery things. Morning, Wanda. Okay, so let's start grabbing a few things while we wait for a few more people to join. So I hope you all found the homework, mostly just pulling a whole bunch of die cuts. A few more things we need this morning. So I pulled out this paper to use kind of as my background. There were tons of papers in the book, so you of course can use whichever one you like. But I'm gonna cut a piece out of this bottom left-hand corner here. Because of the trees, it's kind of directional, but in the end you can't really see it, so you could use any part of the paper you like. And then the other thing you need to grab is a die to make the window. So I'm using the Spellbinders arches this morning. Where'd they go? So these guys here, and I am using the 4th largest die. But I also took a look through my stash and saw, like, if you have these Spellbinders essential ovals, or even a rectangle would work. But basically what you need is, this was what I used for the background. So you need something that is smaller than this piece. I don't know if the window die that came with this collection would work. I tried to find one this morning to see, and I don't think we have any more. But yeah, anything could work, even like a regular oval, or if you have like the Clipper Street bundle, that would probably work, or a rectangle, just anything to make a window. So I'm gonna move this to the side and we will get started. I didn't really time myself, so I hope we have enough time to finish the second card today. So I'm gonna grab out my trimmer, and I decided that I wanted a bit of a border around here, so it's up to you. If you don't want any border, you can cut a 5x7 panel. I just went a 1/4 inch smaller on both sides. So we're gonna cut a rectangle that is 4 3/4 by 6 3/4. And it is a portrait style card. Oh dear, I didn't think this one through. I should have brought my bigger trimmer. Okay, one second. I'm gonna measure this and put a little mark on it because my trimmer does not go that far. Excuse my head if it gets in the way for a second here. So 6 3/4. 6 3/4 here. And then at 4 3/4. Like that. And I'll just bring in my card base to make sure. Perfect. So then we're gonna grab our die and some low-tack tape, and you can kind of decide where you want it. I think I had mine pretty much centered, maybe a little bit more room on the bottom so the sentiment and everything will fit. And then we're gonna tape this in place. Good morning, Lois. So just like that. And then we're just gonna run this through our die cutting machine and cut it out. And then definitely keep the inside piece because the paper is super pretty. You can use that on something else. Just get that out of the way. And then, oh, I didn't bring a pencil. What I'm gonna do is I'm gonna line this up, trying to get an even border there. And I'm just gonna trace the inside of the window just so I know where to glue that die cut later. That's gonna become our background just because it's not that much bigger than the window. So it's not exactly the same size, but then you kind of know where it needs to be. And I guess we can just glue that down right now so I don't lose it. I'm just gonna use liquid glue, but you can use tape runner or whatever you like. And then we'll just put that right about there, covering up all the lines. And then next, I'm gonna take my acetate. So I'm gonna turn this guy over. And I'm just gonna use some double-sided tape because I don't wanna wait for my glue to dry. And I chose to use some very thick acetate because this pattern paper is not super thick. It's up to you what you wanna use, but I just wanted it to be a little more sturdy. So I picked that one there. I'm just gonna use some tape or some tape runner. And I did cut my acetate just the tiniest bit smaller than this paper, so maybe like 4.5 by 6.5, something like that. It doesn't have to be exact. I just don't want to have to trim it, but of course you can if you need to. Sorry, this one seems to be extra sticky. My fingers keep getting stuck on it. Okay. And then what I like to do, especially if I have thinner paper with this kind of tape, because it's kind of hard to pull it off once it's stuck on, is I just kind of pull back the edges enough so I can grip it on all the edges. And then, oops, I will line this up, getting it where it needs to be, and just stick down the two corners there and then pull this off. And that way you don't have to try to readjust it. Okay, next I'm gonna do foam tape. So you can use as much or as little dimension as you want. I think I'm gonna use 2 millimeters so I can put more shaker bits inside. Of course, if you don't want to do a shaker, you don't have to. You can just do a window with or without the acetate. It will still be really pretty. And just make sure the foam tape butts right up against each other so your shaker bits aren't falling out. So go all the way around. The other reason why I like this size is it fits the foam tape. You don't have to cut it down. And one more. Here. And then I might just put a little piece here in the corner just so it doesn't sag. And it also, in case you didn't quite get them up against each other, it just kind of helps to block the hole. Maybe I'll do it at the bottom too, just in case. Just like that. Okay, one more thing before we fill this up. One of the die cuts I asked you to pull was this one here. So I just kind of have the deer sticking out from the corner here, but it's up to you. If you like the little guy, you could stick it out there a little more. I think I'm just gonna chop him off again. And then I just glued this one flat. Oops, just trim that little bit off. And then as long as you don't go all the way to the edge of the card, because we do have that 1/8 inch border, it's okay if it sticks out past the edge of the oval there. So there's that. Just take a look. So we're all good there. Okay, so now this one, I'm gonna just pile the glitter in the center here because I want to be able to line it up and make sure the border is even all the way around. So you can use whatever bits you like. I'm gonna use some Tim Holtz rock candy glitter, and then I've got just some iridescent sequins. I couldn't find my snowflakes this morning. I think those are Doodlebug ones from last year, but I've also got seed beads, some little silver stars, whatever you like, and just, let me see here. I'm gonna put something heavy on this. My card base doesn't seem to want to stay closed. So I'm just gonna make a little pile in the center here, kind of avoiding the edges. Oops, that's probably good. And you can just do a mix of whatever you like. I like to put some smaller things and some bigger things. Oops, that's a lot. Oh well. I would rather have more than not enough. And then you can do some glitter here. Oops, that's a lot. Okay. That is probably good. Maybe a few seed beads. I also like to put something heavy so that it kind of helps everything move around. We'll see how successful this is. Usually I like to fill the sequins in here where there's a well, so they stay put, but then it's super hard to line it up. And then I'll just put a little bit of anti-static powder in here. Just so we try not to get things sticking. And then I will do the same thing as we did on the acetate and just partially pull away the foam tape so that we have a little more wiggle room. Sorry, out of the camera there. So just the edges. And then we'll flip this around and line it up. Just one second here, I'm gonna stand up so I can see where we are. And then once you're happy with that, I think that's okay. Oops, not quite. Okay, let's try that. Then you can pull the rest of these off. Whoops. Okay, one second, that one ripped. So I'm just gonna get my little pokey tool here. The bottom should be sealed now. And I'm just gonna figure out where the release paper left off. And oops. Come off. There we go. Okay, so then what you can do if you're really careful is the release paper is still on the top up here. So if you kind of hold it, you can give it a shake and see, do you want more things in here? Like maybe I'll put a few more beads in, so then you can kind of just hold it open. And let's see if I can pour. Okay, let's try that. Oops, they went flying a little bit. Go in. Okay, that's probably good. And then pull off the last one. Thank you, Cheryl. There. Ooh, I like this one even better than the other one. It's more sparkly. Okay, let me just clean up these few beads that I got all over my desk. Or Deanna's desk, I should say. All right, so that's done. So now we'll get out all the die cuts that I asked you to pull. Let's see. Leave those until the end. Snowflakes. So next what we're gonna do is gonna build this cluster up here. I find it easier to kind of put it together first. So starting with the bow, and then I use these two pine cones and I kind of just cut them apart because I didn't see any other ones like it, so it doesn't really matter. We're gonna hide the cut area, but I just kind of trim them out like that. Looks like I maybe trimmed the snow a little bit too. Well, it doesn't have to be perfect. Thank you, Glenda. Okay. So then I've got a few other smaller pine cones. Oh, the other thing I did do is totally up to you, but there's a little bit of background color in this bow, and I kind of thought it looked a little bit weird because the window was behind. So I actually am just gonna take my scissors and I'm just gonna cut this blue part out of the center. Again, totally optional, but I just thought it looked a little better without that in there. And just, oops, clean that up a little bit. Okay. I'll just move this up here. So what I did was I put one pine cone on each side, but you can kind of put them wherever you like. What did I do? I think I did that one there and this one over here, and I kind of just tuck the edges where I cut in behind. So I'll just put a little bit of glue on here. And then just tuck it in behind there. That. And the other one. And there were so many die cuts in this book. You can feel free to use whichever ones you like. I had a hard time choosing what to do. And then I just grabbed one more of the smaller pine cones here and just put it there like that. And then we've got the two kind of pine branches. And then this guy, I kind of just cut it up into a few pieces. So like I cut this bit off here, and I think I just cut in between the branches here. And just kind of followed again. I kind of cut off that blue part there. Like that, I think. And you can just kind of follow the line there. I don't think anyone will really notice where you're cutting. So this guy, I just kind of stuck it in behind here. How did I do it? I don't know. I'll just cut this end off because we won't see it anyways. So that guy is just kind of up there. And then this one. Looks like I trimmed this a little bit more too. Just like this. Oops. And just stuck that guy over there. Something like that. Just gonna trim this one off a little bit too because we don't need all that. And gonna tuck that guy in there. And then this little guy, I just had it down here. Just take the little end off there. Okay, so now I glued these two on flat, and then I kind of popped the bow up. But you can kind of decide, and I'm fine with having things hang off the edge, but if you don't want to, you can always adjust the positioning. It's probably not great if you're going to put it in the mail. I might get smushed. But if you're hand delivering it, it's all good. Oh, yes, Lois, I always tend to cut apart my die cuts, but that's mostly because I feel so bad layering them behind each other and then you lose most of it. So I'm just trying to not hide things if I can avoid it. So there's that one. And this one, of course, these guys you could pop up if you like. I didn't, but that would look cool too. Maybe use some 1mm foam tape and then do the bow with double thick. So this guy, I'm just gonna put a couple of pieces of foam tape behind. Where are my other scissors? There we go. And we'll just pop this guy up. Maybe just a little bit in the middle. That fit. There we go. And then I just kind of stuck some snowflakes in and around after. So maybe like that. And then got the big one up here. Oops. Definitely should have stuck that under first, but it's all good. We will just do this, and then we can tuck it in there. And then you have another half of the snowflake to put somewhere else. Whoops. Good thing we're gonna cover that up. We'll just stick that in there. And then I had one tucked up underneath. There. Like that. And then for the bottom part, I just use these trees, and you can kind of decide where you want to put them. Don't want to cover up too much of the background. And this one I kind of hung over the edge as well, just because I didn't want to cover up so much of the scene in the middle. So there's that. And then we've got our fox, and he's just gonna go right there. And I did pop him up a little bit. I think I did 1mm foam tape for that. Cheryl, I'm not sure. We're actually waiting for some product to come in. I know we do have a few more coming in. I don't know if there's any extras. So maybe you can email Stacy and see if there are any more, because I'm not sure. So because these die cuts are not super thick, I tend to put a little bit more foam tape because I don't want them to get crumpled, but that's up to you. So we're gonna stick this guy here, and then with this guy, maybe I'll leave it. Where's my sentiment? On my original card, I kind of cut the snow off the bottom, but actually I think I like it, so I'm gonna leave it this time. So again, you can pop this up if you want. I left this one flat and then popped the sentiment up. Thank you, Gloria. I'm not really in a Christmas mood. It's been super hot here lately. Yesterday especially. I'm glad it's a little cooler today. So just put a few foam strips behind here. And then this guy just can go here. Is that straight? 1 second. I'm gonna stand up so I can see. Okay, there we go. And then I did tuck one more pine cone behind the fox over here. The trees. 1 second. I think these are the ones that I used, but any of them would do, Tracy. There are several that are pretty similar. I'll have to look back in the photos and see. That's why I tried to put photos of the pages where the die cuts came from. I'll get back to you. I think it's definitely not the largest one. Okay, then last thing, I just put a few more snowflakes around. So I just did one here. And then I kind of tucked one behind the trees here. Oops. And then one more little one on the other side. Like that. And then, to me, no card is complete without glitter. So I used 2 different colors of stickles on this. I used Twinkle for the snow. It's kind of a bluish, purplish color. And then I'm pretty sure this is Diamond. And I put this on the bow and I used both of them on the other card too. So totally up to you. You can put stickles or not put stickles. But I kind of put it in the center of the bow here. And a little bit on the tail. Like that. And then I won't do it right now, I'll just show you, but I did put a little bit of glitter on like all the snow on the branches. I put it on the berries and then kind of a little bit under the fox here and on the trees again on all the snowflakes. Maybe I'll do the snowflakes quickly because then I'll glue the gems. So I did put a little iridescent gem in the center of the snowflakes, which of course is totally optional. So yeah, this is the twinkle, and I just kind of did it a little messy. But you can put as much or as little as you like, or none at all. Okay, so that is card number 1. All done. Let me just move some of the stuff out of the way, and I will get out my stuff for card number 2. Now, one thing I forgot to say in the homework, which is not really a big deal. Here, let me put it on the screen here, is I made the background out of 1/4-inch strips of paper from the kit. So sorry, I should have had you guys prep that. But it's really easy and you don't really need that many strips. I think I used 6 colors. 1, 2, 3, 4. And you only need like 4 or 5 strips of each color. So I will show you the papers that I used here in a second. Let me just get the rest of my stuff out. And I just used a paper trimmer really quick. Okay, so these are the papers I used. So for the blues, I did not use the one we used for the other card. So I used the darkest blue and the lightest blue. And then I did not use the darkest green. So there was one with the trees on the top. I used these 2. And then I used both of the yellows. But of course you can use whatever papers you want. I'm not sure, Lois. I usually put glue, like regular glue, on the gems too, just to be safe, because I'm not sure how well the stickles would hold. So I just used my paper trimmer and trimmed up several strips there. And then I'm gonna get out my 5x7. So this is just a really thin, like 65-pound cardstock piece, but you could definitely use printer paper for this if you want. I wouldn't recommend using a super thick cardstock just because we are gonna emboss it. It's kind of hard to see here. You'll see it a little bit better once it's not covered up, but I used the embossing folder that you got in your kit to just give it a little bit more interest. So basically here, this is one of my favorite things to do when I'm not feeling creative, is I just cut up a whole bunch of strips and I make backgrounds, and I just find it super relaxing to like make patterns. Oops, there we go. And you just need the tiniest little bit of glue. And then just plop the strip down there. And I tend to like going in a diagonal line rather than straight, because number one, it's less obvious if your strips aren't exactly straight. And also, sometimes when the strips are straight and then you run them through an embossing folder, it kind of widens the gaps in between the strips. So I find this way it just stays looking nicer. And the most important thing is just once you get that first strip down, then I just put another line of glue beside, and then as you're putting it down, you just push it and you'll feel they'll butt right up against each other. So I kind of did the 2 blues and then the 2 greens and the 2 yellows and just repeated. This card's a little bit more simple, so I thought it would be nice to have a frame around it. And this is really quick. Once you get the first one down and it's stuck in place, then you can just keep the pattern going or do something more random if you prefer. And just cover up the whole page. Wanda, the strips are 1/4 inch, but you could definitely do wider, or you could vary the width of the strips if you want to. It looks really cool, I think, if you vary them. So I just did the 6 colors, and then once you get to the end, start again. Where did all my blue ones go? I'm gonna try to be quick. We probably have enough time to finish. If not, this one, the rest of it is pretty straightforward. Just like that. So I tend to kind of start in the middle somewhere and go to one end, and then I'll kind of cut off all the extras, because you can use the shorter pieces when you're doing the other end. And then it definitely helps if you have a glue bottle with a really fine tip on it, because especially if you're going to emboss it afterwards, you don't want to have glue oozing out when you run it through the embossing machine. So I really like the tip on the Barely Art glue bottle for that. But any glue will work. Just be really careful how much you put down. So just a few more. And I tend to keep the pieces I cut off because I do this a lot. So I will try to not, like, I try to hang all the excess off of one side so that you have a longer strip to keep for next time. What's this? This one yellow kind of has words on it. You can't really read them, but I'm trying to put them so they're the right way up. I don't think it really matters, so. This one I'm just gonna cut right now because it's, oops, barely there. And then I'm just gonna take a pair of big long scissors, or you can use your trimmer if you prefer. And I just flip this guy over and then just butt my scissors, whoops, right up against the cardstock and just cut off those extra pieces. Hi, Jen. And just make sure that one last little strip is, give it a second to dry before you cut it, or else, because such a small amount is glued on there, it might come off. So there's that. And then just flip it around and do the same thing on the other side. And just remember, if you flip it around, that now your pattern is going the opposite way. So you might wanna lay your strips out first. Whoops, I just realized I didn't put this far enough over. Okay, there we go. Thank you, Debbie. I really like doing this, and I just figured it was a nice way to be able to use all the colors, and then that way I don't have to pick just one. That one's not quite long enough. Oops. One of my strips up here is not quite even, but that's okay. No one's gonna notice. Light blue. Yes, Jill, you're right. I love trimming it off, and it always looks so perfect after. Even if you don't use a cutter. So just a few more here. My glue is getting empty. I have to remember to refill it. So now you can start using the pieces that you cut off before. Of course, mine all turn themselves upside down, so I can't see which are which. Let's see. And the last one there. Okay. And then we will trim all these off. Oops. Okay. Now I'll try to get all this out of the way. And then we're gonna pull out our embossing folder from the kit, or any embossing folder that you have. I'm just gonna line it up in there and we will run it through our embossing machine. So what sandwich you use will depend on your machine. So with mine here, we have a big shot. So I just did one cutting plate, the embossing folder, and then I just used an extra piece of cardboard just to get a little bit more pressure. So I don't know if you can see there, but it looks really cool. And then if you wanted to make the embossing stand out even more, I thought about it, but I didn't bring it with me. You could get a white pigment ink pad, or like gold or silver, and you could kind of rub it on the edges a bit and it would help define that a little bit more. Oops, I just threw all my die cuts. Okay, so now we'll just grab out the die cuts I asked you to pull for this one. And this one is super simple. So we're just gonna glue this right onto the front of our card base. And I like to use liquid glue when I've used an embossing folder or some really strong double-sided tape. I probably would not use tape runner. You could also use foam tape if you want, because that's super sticky. And I just like to get glue all over. And then line it up right in the corner. And then I tend to like turn it over. If I had time, I would probably put something heavy on top of it and let it sit for a minute or two just to make sure it sticks really well. But for now, I'll just press it a little bit and that should be good. And then at this point, if you need to, you can trim it a little bit if it's not quite the right size. There we go. Maybe I have to trim the bottom a little bit too. Bottom layer. Okay. So there's our background there. So then this was just one of the kind of cut apart sheets that I pulled out. And then what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna use my trimmer and I'm just gonna cut a little bit of the dark blue off, just cause I wanna be able to see a bit more of that background that we just spent all this time making. So let's see. I think what I'm gonna do is I'm going to line the edge of my guard on my cutter up with the edge of the frame here. And then that way we will have an equal border and I don't have to measure. just like that. So this ended up being, let me see, so like about 1/8 of an inch all the way around. But that's up to you. You could leave it the full size if you want. I just thought it would be nice to see a bit more of the background. So then I did use some foam tape to pop this one up. And because this is a bigger piece, I'm just gonna use some more scrap paper. I'm not even gonna measure. I'll just grab my pen and I'll just make a little tick, just a little bit smaller than that piece of paper. And I'm just gonna glue this to the back. I just find it helps because this is a bigger piece that you're popping up. You don't want the paper to cave in. Or sometimes I'll even, if I have some like scraps, some mess up or something, I'll use that. I won't even use foam tape. I'll just put several layers of paper behind, but today for speed, because it is almost 11 o'clock, I'm just gonna do it like this. And just stick that behind there. And then I'll just use some foam tape here and pop this whole panel up. Oops. I'll just do 3 like that. And then make sure it's opening the right way. And we'll just put this right in the middle. Sorry, I'm gonna stand up again to make sure it's straight. There we go. And then what I did is I just covered up this little guy with the Christmas tree, and I did pop it up with some foam tape. I think I just used 1 mil here. Oops. Snip that off. And 1 more. So this kind of looks like sort of the trees inside. It wasn't quite big enough. It kind of looks like it's sitting on the windowsill. But anyways, looking outside, and then I use the sentiment Merry Christmas and a Happy New Year, but there are so many sentiments in this pack too, so you can choose what you like. I did just trim them down a little bit. You could use scissors if you like, but I just used my trimmer and just trim them off at the edge of the words, just so it didn't cover up so much of the scene outside the window. Just kind of eyeballed it, tried to make it kind of similar on the 2 ends. And then again, just a little bit of foam tape. You can of course glue them flat if you like. I'm just gonna trim this in half because I didn't bring any foam strips with me today, but those are much easier if you have them. One of my most used crafty items. Oops, not quite long enough. I'll just do that like that. And then we'll just stick them on here. So Merry Christmas I kind of have hanging off the edge a little bit. Sorry, excuse me again, I have to stand up to get this lined up. And then the other one, I kind of just put it a little more towards the center, like that. And then I did cut or find a bigger star, so I kind of stuck that there. And I did pop that one up. Or maybe I just popped up the smaller one. Yeah, maybe I'll just pop up the smaller one. So I just glued that one, just covering the star that was there. And then this little guy, that's too big. You just use a small little bit of foam tape there. Like that. And then I did a couple of snowflakes also. And those I just kind of let hang off the edge. And I just kind of like that. And like that. And then of course I just used my stickles again. So I used the twinkle on the snowflakes, even the flat ones there, and then on the tree, some of the ornaments and some of the presents there, I just used the diamond. So that is it. Thank you everyone for watching. Courtney will be on later with her cards, and don't forget to tune in tomorrow where we will release the next Crafty Hour. It is super cute, and I know Diane is gonna have some super cute cards for you guys. So hope you have a great day. Talk to you later. Bye.